rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. And as much as I want to say that I am perfect, I am not. Because last night I failed. After I made a promise, I failed. And I haven't seen her in the chat yet. So I was planning on kicking off this show with the happy birthday song that I owe Bam. But I haven't seen her in the chat as of yet. Hopefully she'll pop in here shortly. Yes, it is. It's a shame on me, Amy. I know. I should be fluged or flogged, whichever one you want. I misspelled it last night. That's why I'm mentioning that. Oh, there she is. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get that. Let me make my correction from last night. So, Bam, I know it's a little late. I apologize for that. I hit the button and went, it basically, oh, crap. It was a little more colorful than crap. But once I hit that, then unfortunately, I can't like just automatically turn it back on. So, anyway. So, yeah, I should be flogged. I should be 30 lashes with a wet noodle, drawn and quartered, hung by my toenails until I am dead. And then, of course, on the do me a favor after you've done all that to me. Drag me out to the pasture and shoot my ass. Anyway, all right, Bam, so here we go. Before we get anything else kicked off, I got to cover last night's debacle. Mistake, error, whatever. So here we go. Bam. For you, because your birthday was yesterday, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bam. Happy birthday to you. All right, there you go. Happy birthday, Bam. I hope it was a good one. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight, we have Definitely Not Karen leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and place your hand over your heart. And let's go ahead and follow along with, Definitely Not Karen in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And of course, as always, thank you for submitting that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance here on the program. If you'd like to hear your version of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge, reciting it in your style. And you could do it audio, video, whatever, but however you record it, take that file, whatever creates it, attach it to an email, send that email off to fans, FANS at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you in the rotation as soon as possible. So, tonight, of course, is
down to business. That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
It's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. You know, my mom loves Taco Tuesday. They go out to the what is it, the happy hour on Taco Tuesdays. My mom, I tell you, I guess when you retire, sometimes you just have the ability to go running around and, doing all of this kind of stuff. Anyway, happy hour, Taco Tuesday, whatever suits your bill or floats your boat, or, whatever other kind of adages that we can use. Man, I'm not doing very well tonight. Well, tonight, of course, we have True Grit Roots Network is the glass, and in the glass, Knob Creek 9 Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey is what we have in the glass. And of course, in the glass, there are stones, as 3 Chevy says. God, I've got a hair just bugging my nose. As 3 Chevy says, it takes stones to drink with whiskey. There they are. They're in the glass. Let's go ahead and take the perfunctory first sip. Smooth. Anyway. Whew. And of course, because it is Whiskey Wednesday and we are drinking from the TGRN glass, let's talk about TGRN, True Grit Roots Network. TGRN.net is our home on the web. You can go and find us there. And we have, you can listen to us straight from the browser. You can also listen to our signature channel, Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, in our app, which you have links to download, to point you to the proper download in the TGRN.net website. Also, too, don't forget, if you already have the Live 365, the iHeartRadio, or the Odyssey, AUDACY, app on your phone, you can find us in their catalog of digital radio stations. Also, too, at least for me anyway, I've been able to get Amazon Alexa to do this. You just say, Alexa, play Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio from Live 365. You got to say it just like that, because if you don't, she's not going to do it. So you got to say, play Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio from Live 365, and it should pull it up for you. Might take a minute or so, but because she has to search through a large catalog, but it should come up fairly quick. All right. And of course, don't forget, tonight after the show, I'm going to be, an hour and a half tonight. So Undercover Blues will be on when you leave this program, unless, of course, you leave me early. But anyway, Undercover Blues is exclusively on TGRN and hosted by Chuck Bulldog Findley. You ought to check him out. That's Wednesdays. Normally, again, keep in mind, our programming is such that all of our shows are on a particular day, and they broadcast twice during that day. Undercover Blues, as well as all of our other shows right now on Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, show up at 2 p.m. Central and 8 p.m. Central, with the exception of Friday night. Friday night, there's even more going on there. So anyway, go and check us out. TGRN.net stands for True Grit Roots Network, and we are based out of Austin, Texas. Keep in mind, we've got I keep doing this tease, and it's only because I promise you, we have some big news coming, and I think you're going to like it. So, keep listening to Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, and keep your ear to the ground, because it's coming. Things are coming. Anyway, all right. TGRN.net is our home, and once again, like I said, based out of Austin, Texas. All right, TGRN. True Grit Roots Network. We got to have some sort of a jingle. I got to talk to John about that. We got to have some sort of a jingle, singing jingle, you know? I think they all have it. I don't know. Anyway. All right. Well, I'm going to go back a little bit in your minds here tonight. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, some of this stuff just sort of fell off to the wayside after the election. People just sort of figured, yeah, this stuff is done. Well, in this particular case, it is actually done. But I don't know if you guys remember that whole Biden student loan forgiveness plan that he had. Yeah. So, anyway, if you recall, he tried to, like, forgive, just magically, whatever, wave his hand and erase the student loan debt that many, many people had, like an incredibly amount of debt. We're talking like billions of dollars of debt that Biden was attempting to just sort of, you know, wave his hand and get rid of. And the funny thing about it is that, and Nancy Pelosi said this. She was referring to Trump at the time, but she said this. She basically said that, well, you know, the president can't just forgive the debt. The president can postpone. He can delay, but he cannot just forgive the debt. And so many people kind of forget that. Okay. And so anyway, what ended up happening is the first plan that Biden put forth went in and went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yep, nope, you can't do that. And Biden said, yeah, I don't have to follow the Supreme Court. And he went ahead and did, or attempted to try and do another one. Well, the second one that he did was even larger than the first, but it was called the SAVE plan, the SAVE plan. And it was right around $500 billion that he was trying to get this through. Now, he tried a whole bunch of different policy maneuvers, and this one in particular got sued. He was sued by Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, and Andrew Bailey originally sued the Biden administration over its nearly $500 billion effort to wipe away student loans, known as the SAVE plan. Well, the court ruled yesterday, and by that I mean the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals went ahead and ruled, yeah, this whole plan, the Biden SAVE plan, and his Secretary of Education and gone well beyond this authority for designing a plan where loans are largely forgiven rather than repaid. So Bailey noted in a statement that though Joe Biden is out of office, this precedent is imperative to ensuring a president cannot force working Americans to foot the bill for someone else's Ivy League debt. So now keep in mind, the only reason why they're saying that it's dead is because of the fact that we have a new sheriff in town, and he is certainly not going to pursue or appeal this decision, because obviously it falls right in line with where, you know, the Trump administration wants to go. So, yeah, the Supreme Court also, in order to help this along, the Supreme Court of the United States denied the Biden administration's request late last year to block the ban on the SAVE plan. So, yeah, they had done a last ditch effort to go to the Supreme Court and say, hey, let's lift this ban. And yeah, it didn't work. And so the Federal Appeals Court, which was in Missouri, had earlier blocked the entire SAVE program from being enforced while litigation over its merits continued. In the lower courts, the Department of Justice during the Biden administration asked the High Court for emergency relief. The High Court denied it. So now we're here at the Court of Appeals. And yeah, there we go. So the Biden administration, of course, argued that the court went too far when it issued a nationwide injunction. Hey, wait a minute. Hold up. Wait, the Biden administration argued that the court went too far when it issued a nationwide injunction? Seem to recall there's courts that are doing that now against the Trump administration. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I cheered, like I've said before, I cheered when that happened, when I heard that that had happened. But the reality of it is that upon retrospect, reflection, and research, it is not. It is an unconstitutional ban when you issue a nationwide injunction. Those things were, when I've talked about it on this program, went through the whole thing where they were just created within the last, couple of decades, seems like. So, yeah. Anyway, the overall, the very end of the situation here is that, yeah, they're done. The save plan is done. And, yeah, so it's finally over. And chances are Trump and the DOJ are not going to even bother to respond to this. They're just going to say, yep, it's over with. It's over with. So, yeah. Now, just so you can understand a little bit, the Biden White House said that the SAVE plan could lower borrowers' monthly payments to $0, reduce monthly costs in half, and save those who made payments at least $1,000 yearly. Additionally, borrowers with an original balance of $12,000 or less will receive forgiveness on any remaining balance after making 10 years of payments. That's what they said. Yeah, I don't think that that's going to be an issue anymore. It's gone. So, don't be surprised to maybe hear something about that in the coming days with the Democrats, although I'm pretty sure the Democrats have got plenty to freaking work on with all of this going on in the Trump administration. Speaking of the Trump administration, here in the Epoch Times, and this is part of the reason why I'm saying that don't be surprised that the whole SAVE Act thing will actually die on the vine because of this. Trump terminates Biden-era U.S. attorneys in DOJ overhaul. Now, the funny thing about this is this isn't unprecedented. And yet the mainstream media is trying to make it sound like, basically trying to make it sound like doing something like this is totally unprecedented. Well, Obama did it. So, again, this is nothing unusual. You get rid of the guys, you get rid of the people in the Department of Justice who have and hold allegiances to the previous administration or any other political party. Because, again, keep in mind, part of our problem here in the United States is that we've allowed, yes, I said that correctly, we've allowed the bureaucracy to take over and run the country. Okay. This isn't, our country is not designed to run on a bureaucracy. Our Constitution states clearly the only three branches of government that exist are the executive branch, the legislative branch, and of course the judicial branch. There's no bureaucracy branch in there. Congress makes the laws, the executive enacts and enforces the laws, and the judicial branch is supposed to be there to balance the power and check the other two branches when they get unconstitutionally outside of their lines. And that's the way our country is supposed to be run. Not one single mention in there is there. Oh, yeah, we need bureaucrats, long-term bureaucrats to run and stay run in order to run our country. Yeah, that's not the way it's supposed to work, folks. Not at all. And so Trump going in and doing this is nothing unusual. He's just doing what others have done before him, regardless of what the left or the mainstream media want to try and get you to think. He said this on Tuesday, that he has directed the Department of Justice to terminate all U.S. attorneys appointed during the former Biden administration. He stated that the move was necessary to restore a fair justice system over the country. He says, over the past 4 years, the Department of Justice has been politicized like never before. This he stated on his Truth Social platform. Therefore, I have instructed the termination of all remaining Biden-era U.S. attorneys. We must clean house immediately and restore confidence. America's golden age must have a fair justice system that begins today. So now it is common for U.S. attorneys to resign when there is a change in the administration. However, department lawyers said that the incoming administration would typically request their resignations rather than issuing termination letters. Now, the Epoch Times reached out to the DOJ for comment, but has not received a response by publication time. So, yeah. So there you go. He's again making moves, cleaning house, getting rid of things that probably should be gotten rid of. Let's just face it. You know. Well, further wins. CNBC reports that the Senate confirms Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary. This is one of the people that the Dems kind of, especially Elizabeth Warren, kind of stood against, you know, as far as this goes. So, the Senate confirmed wealthy financier Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary yesterday, putting in place a staunch supporter of President Donald Trump's hardline trade policies. Now, at the Commerce Department, Lutnick, because most of us, I mean, let's be honest, not very many people understand all of the inner workings of the government. But at the Commerce Department, Lutnick will oversee 50,000 employees who do everything from collecting economic statistics to running the census to issuing weather reports. But as CNBC squeals, because let's face it, they're leftist. They don't like this idea. They don't like this at all. Anyway, they squeal that he is likely going to spend a lot of his time, along with Jamieson Greer, Trump's nominee to be the top U.S. trade negotiator, managing the president's aggressive plans to impose import taxes on U.S. trading partners, including allies and adversaries alike. Now, the Senate confirmed Lutnick 51-45. So I'm amazed here at CNBC that they actually stated something that is true with regard to Trump and tariffs. Here in the piece, it says Trump views the tariffs as a versatile economic tool. Now, here's where they said the truth. One, they can raise money to finance his tax cuts everywhere. They can protect U.S. industries and pressure other countries into making concessions on such issues as their own trade barriers, immigration, and drug trafficking. That's exactly what Trump views tariffs on. So apparently there's at least one person at CNBC who gets it. Anyway, this is where they go off the rails. They basically say that mainstream economists mostly view tariffs as counterproductive. Now, keep in mind, again, tariffs are a tax. We know this. We know they're a tax. Okay. But anyway, this is where the piece continues. It says they are paid by import companies in the United States, which try to pass along the higher costs to consumers. Well, what do you think? What do you think they do with taxes anyway? I mean, really? That's why I keep saying, why tax corporations? Why tax businesses? There's nothing there. They don't create money. They don't produce money. They take it from their customers. And so when you get a tax, and this is why this is the part that these guys will never, ever get. Businesses take their costs and taxes, government taxes on things, on them, turn into a cost of doing business, and they immediately just roll that into the price that's being out there. This is part of the reason why a lot of people are sitting there looking at these and going, having companies pay tax and pay an income tax is kind of ridiculous, because they just build it into the cost of whatever, and it's actually consumers, the individual taxpayers, who are paying and footing the bill. Anyway, so one of the things that mainstream economists also seem to think is that this is going to thereby add to inflationary pressures throughout the economy. Well, here's part of the problem. Lutnick, which is part of the reason why Trump likes him, Lutnick dismissed this as nonsense, the idea that tariffs contribute to inflation. Okay. Well, if you're a follower of Milton Friedman, you know that tariffs and tax itself doesn't contribute to inflation. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. Now, Lutnick has expressed support for deploying across-the-board tariffs country by country to strong-arm other countries into lowering barriers to American exports. Which, again, is part of one of the methodologies by which you can push other countries to pour gasoline into the engine of the American economy. That's what we go. Anyway. All right. Well, one of our final, speaking of nominees for placement, one of our final guys has passed another key hurdle. So just like what they did with RFK Jr., the Senate has voted to break the filibuster on Kash Patel. So Kash Patel now no longer has to worry about waking up to a filibuster and waiting. This was yesterday. The GOP-led Senate broke the filibuster on Kash Patel to become director of the FBI. And it was a 48-45 tally. Members voted to invoke what's called cloture. A handful of senators did not vote. So lawmakers now have a limited time to debate the nomination before the final confirmation vote, which is expected to happen by tomorrow. Okay? So here we go. Now we're going to have to see if this is going to actually go through. So, yeah. Anyway, the good thing is that, and the Senate Judiciary Committee, just to let you all know, voted 12-10 along party lines last Thursday to favorably report Patel's nomination to the full Senate after a 1-week delay at the behest of Democrat members on the panel. So, Yeah, we're going to see this. We're going to see this go. I'm fairly certain. So the FBI director answers directly to the U.S. Attorney General and serves a term of up to 10 years. Chris Wray, who was Trump's nominee his first term, stayed on as the FBI director in the Biden administration, stepped down last month. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the reason why he stayed with Biden is because he was a Biden supporter. Yeah. So there you go. Anyway. So when the Senate holds its final vote, Patel will only need a simple majority in order to be confirmed. And so far, all of Trump's second-term nominees have prevailed, though some have prevailed by very narrow margins. That's okay. It's going to happen. Narrow margins are going to happen. That's fine. Now, CNN has said that Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, both Republicans, have yet to decide on whether to support Patel. Bill Cassidy announced on Tuesday that he would vote to confirm. So yeah, we'll just have to see what's going on with that. So it's coming. Hopefully Kash Patel gets in. I would love to see Kash Patel get in. And I think a lot of Democrats would hate Kash Patel getting in. Well, the other thing the Democrats have not necessarily fought for, but they have fought against and have been doing it in every single possible way that they could, is good old Doge. Now, Doge has been ripping through the government. Let's be honest. They've gone through and they found just on the surface, the quick surface, okay, they have found all kinds of fraud, all kinds of misplaced money, all kinds of money that was spent in places that it never should have been spent. And this, of course, is what the Democrats are shaking in their boots for. Now, Doge has now announced something, and this is this is huge, folks. This is huge. Huge. Here in the Epoch Times, Doge says $4.7 trillion. Yes, I slowed that down on purpose. $4.7 trillion in payments from the Treasury are missing what's known as identification codes. Now, here's the thing. When you have a payment, in order to be able to track what that payment might be for, what the Treasury does is it attaches an identification code to it. For an example, the code might have an identification to say, oh, well, this went to, let's say it's an identification code for a certain department, or this went to, tax refunds, or this went to whatever. And it's used by accountants in particular in order to be able to reconcile the books. Doge is saying that $4.7 trillion. Now, keep in mind, that is, to give you a concept of how big this actually is, that's 1 year's worth, roughly, of the budget. Oh, as at current levels right now. Okay. Now, the payments are almost impossible to trace because of the missing account identification codes. Doge said that the Treasury Department has assigned identification codes called Treasury Access Symbols, okay, designed to note which account a Treasury payment is linked to, which Doge said was a standard financial process for bookkeeping, like I just told you. However, codes were not assigned for trillions of dollars worth of payments, as the field was considered optional. So Doge stated on their social media platform X, their account there, in the federal government, the TAS field was optional for roughly $4.7 trillion in payments and was often left blank, making traceability almost impossible. As of Saturday, this is now a required field, increasing insight into where the money is actually going, thanks to the U.S. Treasury for their great work. According to the Bureau of Fiscal Service, TAS codes are identification codes assigned by the Treasury to an individual appropriation, receipt, or other fund account. It stated that all financial transactions made by the federal government are typically classified using a TAS code for reporting to the Treasury and the Office of Management and Budget. Now, they also, at the same time, found a little bit of savings here. So Doge is suggesting that on Monday that the Treasury stop paper checks. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. We live in a digital society. Now, I'm a little concerned about that only from the fact of that, you know, this might open up the door to a digital currency, government-run digital currency, which I am staunchly against because of the plain and simple fact that there's no reason why the federal government needs to know what I spend my money on. However, that being said, the general prevalence of cards and chip cards do make it a convenient factor to be able to go and, you know, just scan your card to pay for things. And I'm guilty of that just as much as anyone else. However, the Treasury Department has had problems with missing and stolen checks. Now, the Treasury processed, according to Doge, the Treasury processed 116 million paper checks in the fiscal year of 2024 and stored them in a lockbox. The estimated cost of maintaining the lockbox is $2.40 per check. Doge also stated that some 25 billion, yes, that's with a B, in tax refunds were delayed or lost due to return of expired checks during the fiscal year of 2023. The commission stated on X, deleting paper checks would save at least $750 million per year. So, yeah. Anyway, so far, Doge has reported that it found an estimated total savings of $55 billion. This was on February 17th, which it said came from a mix of fraud detection, deletion, contract lease cancellations, contract lease renegotiations, asset sales, grant cancellations, workforce reductions, programmatic changes, and regulatory savings. Now, they stated on their website that they are working to upload all of this data in a digestible and fully transparent manner with clear assumptions consistent with applicable rules and regulations. So, yeah. They're still going through, you know, lawsuits and things like that. But it's not stopping them. It's not stopping them. And it shouldn't. I mean, these court cases that are trying to stop Doge need to be like thrown out. Seriously, because this is exactly what the executive branch constitutionally has as its mandate, purview, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, I see some of my rumblers are talking about checks and that kind of stuff. I have one check that I write that is not electronic. One singular check that I write that I can't transfer in an electronic fashion because that one individual utility, okay, that one individual utility does not do electronic payments, period. They still deal with paper checks and so on and so forth. And, that's fine. That's fine. So, well, I know 3 Chevy was commenting about this earlier. Musk has pointed now to looking into the gold at Fort Knox. A sound money advocacy group executive said that auditing Fort Knox gold reserves is several decades overdue. Several decades overdue. Yeah. So, Elon Musk has indicated that Fort Knox, I've driven by Fort Knox, by the way. It's actually very, very interesting. It's a wide open field, great fields of fire. If you're a military person, you'll know what I mean by that. But yeah, you can see it from the highway. It's pretty cool to at least drive by. But anyway, Musk wrote on his X platform on February 18th, looking for the gold at Fort Knox. This gold is the property of the American people. I sure hope it's still there. So he also, Elon also pointed, Mike is denying access to the high security U.S. Army installation, which, by the way, also houses other treasures and important documents. And Musk wrote, who is confirming that gold wasn't stolen from Fort Knox? Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. Okay. Rand Paul jumped in and said, hey, you know what? You should go and check it out. Rand Paul revealed in an interview on February 17th, in an interview on Fox and Friends, that he has been trying to obtain greater transparency for the last decade to make sure it's all there. Now, keep in mind, okay, we walked away, thanks to Richard Nixon, we walked away from the gold standard. Now, Fort Knox was officially called the U.S. Bullion Depository, established in 1918 and named after Major General Henry Knox, who was the first U.S. Secretary of War. In 1932, it became a permanent military post. 4 years later, the U.S. Bullion Depository associated with Fort Knox was constructed to secure the nation's gold reserves. First shipment of gold arrived in 1937, transported from the New York Assay Office and the Philadelphia Mint. Okay. Now, reserves originated from various sources, including the U.S. government buying gold from other countries during World War II. International settlements, trade, mining, because prior to everything, gold was the standard. Gold was what, instead of like the U.S. dollar, it essentially was the, shall we say, standard trade value across the world. Well, there have been calls for auditing Fort Knox for years. In 2011, Representative Ron Paul, for example, hosted a congressional hearing to speak with federal officials about his legislation to audit and inventory gold reserves at Fort Knox and other locations around the country. Paul said at the time, no one from Congress has been allowed to view the gold at Fort Knox in nearly 40 years. This information should be published and available to the American people. The gold belongs to the people, especially since much of it was forcibly taken from them in the 1930s. and the government owes it to the people to provide them with the details of these holdings. In 2021, then Representative Alexander Mooney filed the Gold Reserve Transparency Act, which directs the Government Accountability Office to report on U.S. gold reserves every 5 years. The bill had proposed a comprehensive audit that included an accounting of all transactions, such as leases and swaps, involving U.S. gold holdings in Fort Knox and other facilities. Unfortunately, that bill failed to advance through Congress. So J.P. Cortez, I should say, the executive director of the Sound Money Defense League, said or told the Epoch Times that a thorough audit of the country's gold reserves, including at Fort Knox, is several decades overdue. He says there are legitimate questions about the status of America's gold holdings. He says that in addition to an in-depth physical accounting, issues surround claims of the nation's other metal holdings as well. It says, have gold reserves been swapped, pledged, leased, or otherwise entangled in financial transactions? Has any U.S. gold been mobilized by the Bank of International Settlements, the International Monetary Fund, the Fed, or others? So the last comprehensive audit, now check this out, the last comprehensive audit was completed in September of 1974. It was then Treasury Secretary William E. Simon who invited congressional officials to visit the facility and welcomed the press to witness the congressional inspection. Then Director of the U.S. Mint Mary Brooks said the Mint is clearing away cobwebs and reassuring the public that their gold is intact and safe. For the first time, photographing is being permitted inside the depository. Many critics have questioned the veracity of this audit, calling it a peekaboo glance at the gold in fine Hollywood style. Group notes that no gold bar was examined for purity, serial numbers were not compared against official records, and the full tally of the gold bullion was not counted. This doesn't look good, folks. Now, Gary Engel, former director of the GAO's Financial Management and Assurance, told lawmakers in June 2011 that the U.S. gold reserves are frequently published in various financial reports and have therefore been subject to various audit efforts. Really? Have they now? Anyway, the same time, former Treasury Inspector General Eric Thorson attempted to assure Congress that the federal government knows everything about the gold reserves. We know where it is, we know how much it is, we know that it is there, and none of it has been removed. So in 2024, in September, the U.S. Mint did release an account summary of the nation's monetary gold stock, including what was at Fort Knox. In August 2017, photos and documents were released of then Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin leading a $27,000 trip to Fort Knox to view the government's gold stockpile. Other officials, including Senator Mitch McConnell, also attended. Now, what do you think would happen? I mean, let's be honest. What do you think would happen if this was empty? What do you think would happen if it was empty? I mean, seriously, where do you think that would... I mean, where do you think that would be if it was completely empty? Talk about a blow to our country Talk about a blow to our stability. Talk about a blow to everything that we have in terms of the backing of the federal government in all of this. What do you think? That would be a little scary. Let's just say. So, I don't know, man. I think we should take a look. I do. I think we should, definitely. And especially considering the fact that we stepped away from being part of the gold standard thanks to Richard Dickey Nixon. So I just, I'm telling you, I think if it were found, honestly, if it were found that we didn't have the gold that we say that we had in Fort Knox and other places, or the precious metals, all of them, I think that would cause a serious problem with runs on the banks. You'd have people trying to take their money out. It would cause essentially a 1929 style crash of our monetary system. And we'd have all kinds of issues. Maybe that's part of the reason why they're not wanting us to take a look. You think? Anyway, well, there's a piece in the Federalist, and it's referencing Doge, and it's also referencing the fact that by stopping Doge, okay, by stopping Doge, they are actually stopping how inflation is presented to the people. And, oh, well, yeah, you're right. You're right, 3 Chevy. There isn't enough gold to cover our debts. That's why we walked away from the gold standard. Because the gold standard kept we had to have, for every single dollar that was printed in cash, okay? For every single dollar that was printed in cash, we were supposed to have $1's worth of gold in reserve. That was the gold standard. And we walked away from that. Nixon walked away from it and went to this major banking standard, which of course created inflation. So, I mean, now you see where the tie comes in. And maybe I didn't make that very clear, but the walking away from the gold standard created the inflationary spending that we do now. And, yeah. So anyway, the Doge, there are people now that are saying that stopping Doge is actually stopping the opportunity for inflation to actually come down. And the reason why, which a lot of people don't seem to understand, and again, this is because of the fact that they haven't learned about Econ 101. So here in the Federalist, and I highly encourage you to read this piece, by the way, but here in the Federalist, the writer basically says, now everyone has not taken an Econ 101 class, largely because American schools suck. We talked about that last night. But here he states, I'll give a quick and dirty version of how this works. The government controls how much money exists. And again, this is walking away from the gold standard, which was an equal amount of dollar bills to an equal amount of gold value. So the government controls how much money exists, the total sum of all the U.S. dollars available to everyone in the world. When the government wants to spend more money than already exists, it just prints more. And today, this printing is usually done by increasing numbers on various computer spreadsheets, but it basically amounts to the same thing. Now, by doing that, the government doesn't actually increase the value of the dollar. In fact, it decreases the value of the dollar. And when it decreases the value of the dollar, it actually decreases the value of everything, meaning that it takes more money to purchase the things that you need. So, and also too, every time that the government, and this is true, every time the government creates and prints money to back up things like all these wonderful social programs, and whether you know it or not, the whole idea of the SAVE Act and getting rid of the debt, all that did was, or all that was going to do, was put the burden on the taxpayer for the debt and also decrease the value of the money supply that is out there. Okay. So anyway, he continues here that big government means more dollars in people's bank accounts without a corresponding increase in its actual value. And that's what inflation is. Now, keep in mind, when we went away from the gold standard, the idea was a 2% year-over-year inflation was baked into the cake. That means that the value of a dollar actually decreases by 2% every single year. That's already a part of the entire system. But Milton Friedman explained this as basically inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. It is and can be produced only by a more rapid increase in the quantity of money than there is in output. So when we all received the COVID stimulus or increased welfare outlays or more people working as bureaucrats instead of providing true market value to others, you get inflation, is what he's saying here. Now, Doge is actually targeting causes of inflation. So everything that Doge has been finding, by the way, is things that cause the government to spend more money and provide zero value. This is exactly what and why Doge being stopped becomes a bit of a problem. Now, he points out here in the piece, the author does, the Constitution essentially tells the federal government to protect Americans from foreign invasion, conduct foreign relations in America's interests, govern interstate and international commerce in American interests, and control immigration, and finally, to provide federal courts. That's it. That pretty much sums up Article 1, Section 8 for the most part. And what he talks about now is most federal actions now concentrates instead on transferring payments that are literally unconstitutional, because if it doesn't fall within those 5 basic segments, it's not a constitutional authority or responsibility, I should say, of the federal government. Now, the author does go on and say, even its constitutional actions are rife with waste, fraud, and abuse. How many defense contractors do you think try to economize on their spending? How many things does our military do that do not contribute to our actual national security? Well, he claims there's quite a few. Then he also comments about how our immigration laws, are they effectively enforced and upheld? So, yeah. So everything that Doge is doing to try and cut spending is also helping to cut inflation. And yes, buddy, provide a postal service and maintain those post roads. That is part of it too. So anyway. Yeah. Now, the author does continue on here and say that the annual inflation rate that just came out for January was 3%. And this particular thing that he's talking about here, this is what the Democrats are complaining about for the most part. They're sitting there, and the Democrats, especially Hakeem Jeffries, has posted many things on social media where he's all been, well, where is the Trump team on lowering inflation? Well, guess what? There, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries, your asses are blocking them from lowering inflation. In other words, getting rid of spending. This is part of the reason why our inflation rate went from around 3 or 4% shooting up to 9% after the Inflation Production Act was signed. That our good old former Democrat nominee for president, Kamala Harris, cast the deciding vote on. So, yeah. Anyway. Oh, shit. Yeah, that's for you guys over on Rumble. That's for you guys. Oh my gosh, they're talking about something around fang fang bang bang and getting secrets out of people. Anyway. Yeah. So, anyway. Well, the Doge isn't the only isn't the only ones, by the way, that are going and auditing things. Hey, my news, if you come up with a design, I would prefer it if you keep something from the American Perspective logo on there. So if you come up with a design on the WWH version of the shirts, I'll put them in the store. I was planning on doing something, but I'll put it in the store. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, Polish Dog, I saw that. You guys were talking about Kibalsas earlier, and that, of course, sparked the less pure thoughts, I think, of many. As I said, my chat is nuts over on Rumble. Anyway, all right, let me get back on track here because, we're far out beyond where we're supposed to be. Anyway, Pete Hegseth has now decided that he is going to launch an investigation into one of Joe Biden's biggest scandals. What scandal is that? Well, that is the debacle known as the Afghanistan withdrawal. He's announced that the Department of Defense will conduct a full investigation into the Biden-Harris administration's withdrawal of Afghanistan in August of 2021. The withdrawal resulted in the deaths of 13 service members and left billions of dollars in military equipment in Taliban hands, has faced widespread criticism for its poor execution. No kidding. And in an interview with Breitbart News, Hegseth confirmed that the Pentagon has already designated officials to lead the investigation, aiming to hold those responsible accountable. You think that maybe Mark Milley could be on that? Yeah. Hegseth stated that the investigation will focus on establishing a factual timeline of the decisions made before and during the withdrawal. He says, we've already identified the folks that'll be in charge of that full investigation inside the Pentagon. So, yeah, they're going to go and take a look at that. So that's awesome. Well, couple more rats have decided to flee the sinking ship. So if you recall, Doge found huge Social Security overpayments And MSNBC or MSLSD, depending upon if you are a Levinite or not. Well, that would be hilarious, Mark. Mark says, I want Geraldo to go into Fort Knox like he did with Al Capone's vault. Anyway, a rare moment of transparency this is in LifeZette. A rare moment of transparency on MSNBC unfolded on Tuesday when a segment on Joe Diaz-Balart reports acknowledged that the Social Security Administration has issued nearly $72 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B, in improper payments over an 8-year period. The revelation stemming from an inspector general audit appeared to catch Diaz-Balart off guard. The discussion was following a major finding by Elon Musk's Doge, which recently uncovered significant irregularities in the SSA database. According to the records, over 25 million Americans are still listed as living despite being 100 years old or older, with some allegedly exceeding the age of the U.S. Constitution. Musk himself reacted to the data with sarcasm, posting on X saying, according to the U.S. Social Security database, these are the numbers of people with each age bucket with the death field set to false. And he goes, maybe Twilight is real, and there's a lot of vampires collecting Social Security. Yeah. Folks, telling you, this is amazing. Well, after that revelation was uncovered, the acting commissioner, Michelle King, has resigned. This in drewberquist.com. The Social Security Administration's acting commissioner, Michelle King, resigned over the weekend following a dispute with Doge and his group's efforts to access sensitive government records. The Washington Post reported this on Monday. King, who has been with the SSA since 1994, stepped down on Saturday and was replaced by Leland Dudick, a federal official who's been supportive of Doge's mission to identify and eliminate government waste, fraud, and abuse. And here's the picture, the photo in X of somebody. It's the account is John Basham, who is pointing this out. If you take a look at that, how many people are listed as not being dead yet, but over the age of 100? Look at those numbers in that spreadsheet entry. My gosh. And that's a picture of Michelle King right next to her. So anyway, Dudick will serve as acting commissioner until President Donald Trump's nominee for the role, Frank Bisignano, wow, I should know how to say that because that's Italian for sure, is confirmed by the Senate. So, yeah. Anyway, so she apparently had a problem with Doge accessing sensitive information and has since resigned. She's been there since 1994, not necessarily in the position, but been there since 1994. Can you believe that? I mean, somebody, again, this is the whole point that I'm making in terms of the bureaucracy. These people were not supposed to be making a career out of this, especially not our elected officials, although most of the time I do mention our elected officials. But the regular people that are in there, every single day, they're the ones that are the bureaucracy. Why do you think Donald Trump had such a hard time in his first term? Had nothing to do with the Democrat Congress people trying to hold him up. What was holding him up was the bureaucrats. It was the bureaucrats. People who have been in government for decades and have been doing a job over and over and over again, especially in today's day and age where we have things polarized, so polarized. This is just ridiculous. Well, anyway, she's not the only one that has stepped down. According to the Daily Caller, the DOJ prosecutor who was leading the D.C. criminal division has decided to suddenly resign as well. Denise Chung sent an email to the office yesterday notifying her colleagues of the decision, which she came to after refusing to carry out a directive from leadership. The New York Times reported this, by the way. Trump nominated Ed Martin, who is already serving as interim U.S. attorney, to lead the office on Monday. Chung wrote in her email that when I started as an assistant U.S. attorney, I took an oath of office to support and defend the Constitution. And I have executed this duty faithfully during my tenure, which has spanned through numerous administrations. This, by the way, was acquired by CNN. She continued and said, I know that all of the AUSAs in the office continue to honor their oaths on a daily basis, just as I know you have always conducted yourselves with utmost integrity. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Anyway, 7 DOJ officials had resigned earlier in February after receiving instructions to dismiss charges against New York Mayor Eric Adams. U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Danielle Sassoon. Sorry, just the way it's written, resigned first, writing that dismissing the indictment would be inconsistent with her, quote, ability and duty to prosecute federal crimes without fear or favor and to advance good faith arguments before the courts. You know, these people don't seem to understand that by not prosecuting some of the people from the BLM riots and not prosecuting some of the people who have, done murders in this country, and by not prosecuting some of the illegals that have been buried in criminality, I mean, just by the sheer nature of them coming here, okay, but especially the ones that are coming here and commit crimes afterward, and they refuse to bother. I mean, several of these people have refused to bother to bring charges against these folks. That's not standing up for the Constitution, people. That's not standing up for the Constitution. That's neglecting your constitutional duty. Because you're supposed to uphold the law. And guess what? The Constitution is the law of the land. Okay? Anyway. So, yeah. The rats are leaving the sinking ship here, folks. They're diving away, and they're trying to get away from all of this stuff. Well, there's one problem with Doge doing all these wonderful things, and there's one problem with Trump putting these executive orders together. And honestly, there's even a problem, even if Congress were to go and make them into law, is the fact that these types of things that are going on right now could be overturned, could be removed by the next administration that comes in. Now, I'm not suggesting that we go and rewrite our Constitution completely. However, making sure that the executive orders, which generally speaking, executive orders are almost rescinded immediately upon the opposite party getting into power, we have to enshrine them a little bit more than just having an executive order. And so this piece in the New York Post brings up that point and says, hey, Congress, make government great again by turning Trump's reforms into law. So, all of these things that have been going on, where Doge has been removing, all kinds of waste, fraud, abuse, etc. They're finding all of this stuff. The suggestion now is to take some of these things, such as cutting out the left, what they're calling, or what the New York Post is calling the left-wing slush fund, known as USAID, and exposing more of the depths of the deep state's corruption. Things like the millions of taxpayer dollars that FEMA had been sending to hotels in New York City to house illegal immigrants. So, the point here, though, is that Doge itself can't defeat the Washington swamp. Congressional Republicans need to step up and root out the same corruption with the same urgency as the Trump administration. And what needs to happen is they need to take some of those things and start making laws. Permanently banning DEI from the federal government would be an excellent place to start, it says. So during his first week in office, President Donald Trump signed 3 executive orders to stop affirmative action on federal contracts, close federal agencies' corrupt DEI departments, and cancel the Biden administration's discriminatory DEI practices. Each of these executive orders represents a huge victory for the Constitution and the American people, but if Congress doesn't codify them into law, they could be reversed with the stroke of a pen, which is exactly what I just told you. Doge has already canceled more than 100 DEI contracts that were costing Americans more than $1 billion. So, yeah, really quickly before I continue on this thought, I got to give a shout out to Palms R Us. Palms R Us becomes the latest monthly supporter of the American Perspective channel. Thank you ever so much for that. I do appreciate that quite a bit. So thank you so much for that. You guys are so great. Okay, so to kind of like continue this kind of vein is that some of these things need to be codified into law. And keep in mind, of course, though, that just because it's being codified into law doesn't mean that it can't be rescinded at a later date. But it's a lot harder to rescind a law that's already passed Congress than it is to rescind an executive order. So that. Oh, well, that is so nice. Here's what Palm said. Well, I think you're good, Rick, and I want to support your cause. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Anyway, So I didn't see this executive order, but according to the New York Post piece here, on Tuesday, Trump signed an executive order that requires agencies to fire 4 employees for every one that they hire. Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing. So they got to get rid of 4 in order to get 1. That's what we call a negative reduction. Positive reduction for that. Anyway. All right. Yep. So, toward the end of codifying some of this, Representative Andy Ogles introduced the End the Deep State Act on February 4th, which this is kind of cool. His legislation was going to make it easier for Trump to remove federal workers who are intentionally undermining his goals, just like those FEMA employees who sent just last week almost $60 million in taxpayer dollars to New York hotels. It also reverses a rule. This legislation would reverse a rule that President Joe Biden introduced to protect insubordinate employees from losing their status as civil servants. Now, somebody needs to explain to me this. I've never really understood this philosophy. I get the altruistic reasons for doing something like establishing tenure for teachers, for an example. But I just don't seem to quite understand how you would put something in place that would keep people to the point where they could not be fired for doing something bad, regardless of how long they've actually worked for the company or anything else. I mean, every place that I've worked for, believe it or not, has all been a right to work, meaning that the state in particular has been a right to work state. The only contract that I've ever had, which, I mean, even the federal government in terms of the military, you can get your ass kicked out for doing things that you're not supposed to be doing. But the thing about it is that what I don't seem to understand is, why do they even have the ability to keep people around? You would think that you would want to get rid of riffraff, not keep them. And that just doesn't make sense to me. Not at all. But for some reason, these people, they seem to want to keep individuals around for whatever purposes. Just doesn't seem to make sense. Anyway. All right. I see my time is running low. So I am going to go ahead and let's kick off tonight's, which button is it? I keep forgetting. That's this one. Tonight's Pet of the Week. Now, Amy submitted this Pet of the Week. Now, of course, everybody who has been a longtime whiskey warrior knows that Amy trains her dogs to do things like agility and jumping off of docks in chasing after balls to see how far they go. I can't remember what that's called. And doing all kinds of things like, tracking down rats in barns. Okay. But all of that being done and said and done, Amy sent this to me and didn't bother to necessarily give me like any kind of script to talk through about this. So other than the name of the dog that she is showing, which is Ellie, Now, we've seen Ellie before. Ellie is just, and keep in mind, I'm just telling you, Amy has taken some fantastic photos of these people, of these dogs doing people. They're people. They're basically like people. I mean, let's just face it. But anyway, they are fantastically trained animals. Beautiful. Teruvian shepherds? Amy's going to yell at me here in a minute if I got it wrong. I know it's Teruvian something or other, but I think they're shepherds. Anyway. And so without any further ado, a little bit of ado, but without too much further ado, let's go ahead and get, oh, there we go, the pet of the week up here. So this, of course, is Ellie. Oh, hey, I recognize that person. What's even better is I recognize that hat. Looks familiar. Anyway, so this is Ellie. Gorgeous dogs. I mean, just seriously, gorgeous dogs. Amy, I've always been impressed by your animals, but they are fantastic. So anyway, so this one here is showing. Apparently, according to Amy, who's narrating here in this, a Belgian Teruvian. That's what, or Tervuren. God, how do I pronounce that? Tervuren. Tervuren. Probably sound a lot more funny if I was drunk. Anyway, I'd have to hear it pronounced in order to understand, but here's Ellie. Ellie is saying hi to mom, and of course, all excited because they are doing agility. Now, for those of you that don't know about agility, I'm just going to point this out to you. You know those, you've seen those dogs that are running those courses, and they, go up, slide. Oh, Tervuren. Yeah, okay, I tried. Anyway, it's a dog. But anyway, she the dog, the chat's having fun trying to pronounce the name Belgian. But anyway, they have, they go through the course, they go through, obstacles, they jump over things, they run through, like tunnels, they'll go up and over seesaws and all kinds of stuff. And, yeah. So anyway, this is an example of one of them. She is going over what is a 24-inch triple jump. So that's 2 feet off the ground. Now she's clearing, for those of you who are on the audio portion of the program, you really got to come on over and check them out. Check out rumble.com, because seriously, this is just great. But this is, you can just see, look at the concentration on this dog's face. I mean, let me zoom in here. Look at this. Look at that concentration. Oh my gosh, that dog is 100% trained. Hey, real quick question. Amy, is she missing an ear? Like the top part, or is it just folded down in this photo? Because when you can tell when an animal, especially dogs and horses and even cats, you can really focus. You can really see where their focus is. If they're pointed directly at you, meaning their ears, their eyes, their nose are just pointing directly at you, you know their attention is 100% on you. Okay? 100% on you. And this photo, she's clearing the jump by probably a good 6 to 8 inches at least. Apparently half of her ear came off at 1 week old. So it is actually missing. All right. So, the ear is actually missing her. It's her left ear. Well, yeah, left on her side. It'd be her left side. Anyway, so yeah, she is clearing this jump, and she already knows that she's done it. I mean, she knows the minute that she jumps off, she knows she's cleared the jump, and she is looking for the next command. She's looking directly at Amy, and that is so intense. And that's what these dogs go through with these agility tests and so on and so forth. It is a matter of trust. It is a matter of attention and everything else. These dogs are just fantastic in everything that they do. So anyway, thank you once again, Amy, for sharing with us your turves, and of course, your agility. And all of the eventing things that you do. So that is just fantastic. I do appreciate it. We all appreciate it. And I'm sure you've got hundreds of thousands of other pictures to send in too, which we'll take. We'll go ahead and take. Anyway, so that is tonight's Pet of the Week. If you want to get your pet featured on Pet of the Week, all you need to do is give me photos, give me something in terms of, like what they are, name, breed, so on and so forth. We've even done like funny stories and things like that on all of this. And so you can send it in to me, send it into fans, FANS at AmericanPerspective.online. And I do Pet of the Week every Wednesday. And of course, Question of the Week is Saturday night's segment. All right, folks, we will see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Don't forget to go to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel. Hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget on your way out, hit those thumbs up and like buttons for the program. And I do appreciate that. Like I've already said, we'll see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.